The near-weekly protests have also stood out for their meticulous organization. Videos show protesters forming human supply chains, some over 1 mile long. And to communicate what supplies are needed, they use hand signals passed along the chain. In this video, protesters are asking for helmets. Several videos show how the massive crowds part to allow ambulances free passage. For the most part, the protests are organized anonymously. Posters with information about marches are shared through airdrop and Telegram chats. Protesters have adopted a strategy they're calling Be Water in order to evade the police. It means that they move quickly rather than occupying a single location. You can see that in this video. A large group of protesters entering a train station so they can travel to another area. And here, riot police have just arrived to disperse a crowd that has already left.
Please stop to watch this video, especially if you align yourself with the Black Lives Matter movement. Today, Doug Ducey of Arizona has announced that he is going to start a curfew at 8 p.m. for 1 week, stating that he is going to give law enforcement additional tools to prevent lawlessness, saying he's trying to prevent individuals' lives from being taken. Also allowing the National Guard to come here. Also saying that he is going to provide them with any resources he can. He is doing this to try to silence us. His actions are deplorable and disgusting, and it shows that he does not care about Black people and our lives being taken. Please share this information around because I think it's important to know what our government is starting to do. But this act also gives me hope because if the Black Lives Matter movement wasn't doing well, they wouldn't be taking such extreme measures to keep us quiet. But we won't. Black Lives Matter.
I love the comments on my Rates of Crime song that are like, so are you saying that having more cops around means more crime? Yes. 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 Absolutely. Yes. How do you think they determine rates of crime? They're based off reported crimes, right? And those reported crimes usually come from arrest, right? So if there's more cops, there's going to be more arrest, right? So if there's more cops and then there's more arrest, then there's a higher rate of crime, right? Does that mean that the neighborhoods where there's less cops automatically have less crime? Not necessarily. But if a tree falls in a forest and no one's there to hear it, doesn't make a sound? If a crime is committed in a rich neighborhood and no one's there to report it or arrest anyone who's responsible, is that neighborhood going to have a high crime rate? Like, hello? Also, never forget that back in 2014, 2015, NYPD went on strike to prove how much the city needed them, and crime rates went down.
Alright baby, let's talk riots. First of all, if you've been saying that the riots delegitimize the movement and you are A, non-black, therefore removed from centuries of anti-black oppression, B, only talk about injustice when it is convenient or popularized, or C, spend more energy bemoaning the riots than you did the actual deaths of Ahmaud, of Breonna, of George, then it is not the movement but your opinion that has been delegitimized. Next caller. Second of all, there are multiple accounts that the people who are actually instigating these riots have been a combination of paid agitators, overzealous cop intervention, and white anarchists. There's an overwhelming number of protesters that are risking their lives to put out fires, to give medical aid to people who need it and protect them from police and others who would use this for their personal gain. Also, can we talk about the fact that during a worldwide pandemic involving a respiratory disease, the police are still using tear gas and mace to dispel crowds? Also, hello, do we not remember the riots in the 60s and the 90s and how everyone said that there would be more riots if things did not get better in America? Do you not remember after every time y'all stole a black life from us that we said things are going to get worse? The only thing y'all like to play more than devil's advocate is the fool.
If you've been following the Ahmaud Arbery case, there's something important you need to know. Yesterday, the court held a preliminary hearing. A preliminary hearing is just a probable cause hearing. A probable cause hearing means the judge listens to all the evidence in the case and determines whether there was sufficient evidence to charge the offenders, here the murderers, with murder, felony murder, and aggravated assault. But there's some other things that we didn't know before that we learned. Number one, we learned that Ahmaud was shot 3 times. One time directly in the freaking chest. In fact, the first time he was shot in the chest. But we also learned that after he was murdered, one of the murderers stood over him and said this. I'm going to move all the way so you can read it. So, explain to me again how this wasn't racially motivated? Don't be shy. Explain some more.
Today I'm going to show you how I make bombazos. I'm going to be making them with steak, so here I have 3 pounds of sirloin steak cut into small strips. Add the steak to the pan and season with black pepper and Goya seasoning. Add 4 minced garlic cloves and 1 chopped onion and a tablespoon of chili powder. Mix and cook until it's well done. Cover and remove it from the burner. Boil 7 chile guajillo. Transfer the peppers to the blender. Add 2 garlic cloves, half a teaspoon of oregano, and 1 teaspoon of salt. Add a cup of water and blend. Transfer the sauce back into the saucepan. Prepare your bread. I'm going to be using bolillo, but you can also use teleras. Spread the sauce on the inside of the bolillo. Place it face down on the skillet. Spread sauce on the outside of the bolillo. Add your favorite cheese, steak, lettuce, sour cream, and enjoy.
Hey, a reminder to any queer person not understanding riots and looting. The Stonewall Uprising was 5 days of rioting, looting, and violent protests against the police. These riots, led by Black and brown, trans, and queer folks, were the catalyst for the reason we have LGBTQ rights today.
Hey, listen, July 4th through 7th, we ain't buying nothing. All people of color, white people, feel free to join us. We need as many hands on deck as we can get. Why are we doing this? This is a boycott. America values money the most, so let's take that away and show them what we can do if they don't bring changes immediately. This is effective because even if we lose numbers during protests, even if the military comes out, even if white supremacists or whoever comes out and starts violence and we're trying to avoid that, we can fight from at home and we can fight with the dollar, our dollars. They gave us the stimulus because they want us to spend it. This economy is already fragile. Tell them change some stuff or get ready for an economic crash. I want to hear no comments about, oh, you're really going to affect people's jobs, people's lives that have nothing to do with this, innocent people. Yes, because my job, I can't even do my job, live my life without fear of all this craziness happening because I'm Black and other people of color and people facing injustice. So yes, and we're going to flip the whole system over. Yes. If those 3 days prove effective, we're going to do it again. As many days as we need to do it, y'all. Share this with as many people as you know. If not, spam the comments of anybody else's post saying July 4th through 7th, we ain't buying.
Stop scrolling. This is extremely important. Please like, comment, and share. We need to get the word out. This is Rhea Milton, a Black trans teenage girl. She was lured into a secluded area of a park by 2 men and a young girl in an attempt to rob her of her belongings and steal her car. It is also believed that she was sexually touched during this experience before being shot dead. This is Dominique Remy Fells, another young Black trans woman. Within 24 hours of the first murder taking place, her body was found dumped with several stab wounds and trauma to the head. We are currently fighting for Black lives, but it appears that some Black lives matter more than others. This is barely covered in any media outlets. No one is talking about them. Black trans women are at an extremely high risk of being killed. We need to fight for them. All Black lives matter. Dominique Fells, Rhea Milton. Say their name.
Please stop scrolling for just a moment. I want to share this with you. This picture is all of my pain, all of my rage, my frustration, my fear, channeled into art. And I'm sharing this with you because it has reached and spoken to so many people and allowed them to release their emotions together in a community. So please, if you're able to, leave a like, share, comment, whatever. I just want the people who need this to know that they are allowed to feel this way, that they are not alone. It's okay to feel hopeless and scared right now. But also remember that you are loved. And together, we can fight this, regardless of skin color or anything. We are brothers, sisters, siblings, family. Peace and love.
Are you guys kidding me right now? George Zimmerman, the man that killed Trayvon Martin, this child is walking free, did a meet and greet after being acquitted, auctioned the gun he killed with for $100,000. Under federal protection funded by taxpayer money, sued the parents for defamation after the trial for a huge sum, and is selling autographs to his fan base? He has a fan base because he shot a Black child. He sued the family of the child that he killed. You are kidding me right now. He's walking free, made $100,000 off of the gun that he used to murder a child. And he has a fan base. Can you imagine if it were the other way around? If a black grown man killed a white child, he would have been dead. And this guy gets to walk around free?
Did you hear that protesters killed a cop?
Well, I hope whoever committed that atrocious crime gets punished with a paid suspension from work and a lifelong pension for the PTSD of killing them. That'll teach them.
I'm shadow banned, so like y'all probably aren't gonna see this. If you do see it, please do the whole like share cancel thing, because like people need to know. The officer involved in George Floyd's death was brought up on excessive force charges multiple times and was not prosecuted on those charges because the person in charge was Amy Klobuchar. Now, if you've somehow checked out and forgot that she tried to just run to be the Democratic nominee for the United States, she is in the running to be one of Joe Biden's VP picks. She did not prosecute police officers on more than 24 counts of police brutality and police misconduct while she was in office. She does not deserve to be the Vice President of the United States. Please let everybody know.
Oh no, I've accidentally set off a smoke grenade. What am I gonna do? Well, if you've got a traffic cone handy, then one thing you can do is put the traffic cone on top. That'll immediately contain some of the smoke. Also, if you've got a bottle of water, you can pour the water into the middle of the traffic cone, and that will slow down the smoke's reaction and could even extinguish the grenade completely. Now there's another method that's better for extinguishing the smoke grenade, but it's a little more dangerous. The smoke canister is going to be hot, so you're going to need heat-resistant gloves or tongs, and a heat-resistant bag filled with water. Now a Ziploc bag is probably going to melt, so I just have a big chip bag. Have your bag in hand, and grab your smoke grenade, put it in the bag, close it up, and give it a good shake. What you want to do is you're trying to force water into the inside of the grenade. You do this for a few moments, and your smoke grenade is safely extinguished.
So here's a timeline of events from yesterday in my city of Hampton. A fake Black Lives Matter group put out a post on Instagram encouraging people to come out to Town Center for a peaceful protest. The actual Black Lives Matter group denounced that page and said that it was not theirs. Local Black Lives Matter still marched that evening, and they went to that town center to make sure everything was okay. Upon arrival, there were about 10 to 15 white guys in camouflage armed to the teeth, about 100 squad cars, and a white bus filled with cops. Protesters did their protesting, walked the interstate for a couple of minutes, came off, and they were met with SWAT, police, and National Guard. Still remaining peaceful the whole entire time, they were still met with tear gas and rubber bullets. Tell me again why the fuck we should remain peaceful when cops are abusing their power against protesters.
Wow, this is nothing but straight facts. A lot of y'all are vocal about the looting, but silent about the murder. Let's go over something. We're gonna call this series, White People Rioting for No Reason. Ready? Let's go! Exhibit 1, which is right here, rioting after a surf competition. Exhibit 2, rioting after their football game lost. Exhibit 3, rioting after their baseball team won. Next exhibit, rioting because their hockey team lost. Next exhibit, rioting after their favorite coach lost their job because he ignored child sexual abuse. Another exhibit, rioting because their baseball team won. Wow! So as you can see with this exhibit, this is nothing but facts. White people riot to get haircuts and because their team won or lost. We riot because the police are killing.
I've been seeing a lot of discussion on this app about the acronym ACAB and how it stands for All Cops Are Bad. But no. All cops are bastards. It would be too simple to say that all cops are bad. And it's usually with this misinterpretation that the argument arises that, oh, not all cops are bad. Oh, yeah. Obviously not all cops are bad. But they are all bastards. At first glance, you're probably thinking that we mean bastard by an unpleasant or despicable person. But that's not what we're saying. At least that's not what I'm saying. When I say bastard, I'm taking it from the word bastardize, meaning to corrupt or debase. Cops are inherently corrupted in two ways. The first is that they are corrupted by their positions of power, that they can use their authority to inflict violence on people. The second and the most important reason on why all cops are bastards is because the very laws that they are trying to enforce are corrupt and are used to subdue different minorities and identities. So, cops can be corrupted by their power. Cops are corrupted by the laws they enforce. All cops are corrupted. All cops are bastards.
Recently, I've seen a lot of white people ask, how is this happening? How does this continue to happen? How can the police just be killing unarmed, innocent black citizens? Well, let me show you some history. This right here is the badge of a runaway slave patrol officer, aka the actual local law enforcement. In the 1860s, these were people paid by private citizens to hunt and kill black people. And this is a very modern day badge of a sheriff today. You add all this up plus the alliance of the KKK in the 1960s, and we have an extremely inherently racist, corrupt police system. Now, I'm not saying that every police officer is a racist person and a murderer, but I am saying at the core of the police organization, there is a system of racism and corruption. So if you want to know what you can do, just know the country is built on some bullshit, and we need your help changing it.
Okay, don't have a job anymore, might as well start a college. Welcome to Karen University. All right, class, today we're going to talk about how to make that boomer relative or that devil's advocate in your social studies class really upset, because they assume that we as liberals are just crybabies that scream, curse, and cry when we don't get our way, which we do. But they also don't know that we are such educated individuals. So you hit them with a nice 1-2 punch, and you hit them with the educational side of things first, and then you hit them with the emotional vulgarity at the end. Let me demonstrate. If Travis comes up to you and he's like, hey, Kevin, I don't know what that accent is. Hey, Kevin, if black people make up such a small part of the population, how come they're charged for crimes at such a large rate? Well, Travis, police are disproportionately put into black neighborhoods, so that might have something to do with that statistic. Also, the National Registry of Exonerations recently came out and said that black people make up 50 to 60% of all violent crime wrongful convictions. And while his jaw falls and the dip falls out of his mouth, that's when you hit him with the vulgarity. You call him a stupid mother.
Don't say white privilege. Say only the cops who abuse their power. We're brothers and sisters. Don't divide us even more. Baby, I'm not gonna yell at your child, but let me tell you a story. It's the year 1944, Clarendon County, South Carolina. Two young white girls aged 7 and 11 turn up dead on the black side of town. A suspect was apprehended, interrogated with no lawyer or parent present, tricked into writing a false confession, placed on trial. The lawyer he was given called for no witnesses, asked no questions, and filed 0 appeals. There was no hard evidence to support him being guilty. No DNA samples, no witnesses, no bloodstains, not even a murder weapon. The trial lasted 3 hours. After only 10 minutes of deliberation, the jury found him guilty. No transcript of the trial was recorded. He was sentenced to the electric chair. Oh yeah, did I mention he was only 14? George Floyd didn't even make it to the courtroom. White privilege and racism. I said what I said.
I'm getting calls from the media in Salt Lake City, Utah, saying that people are burning down Salt Lake City, and they're putting headlines that Black Lives Matter Utah burned down Salt Lake City. Hi, I'm the leader of Black Lives Matter Utah. I'm in Minneapolis. We didn't hold a protest today. And I heard all the people doing it are white people. They're setting fires, tagging buildings, breaking windows, and I'm getting blamed for it. White people, are you really oppressed? Did you need to get some angst out for being so privileged? Your only job as a protester is to stand between the police and the other protesters, because the police are less likely to hurt you. You should never break a window, start a fire, or do shit, because they blame it on black people. So guess what? When I get back to Utah tomorrow at 3 o'clock, I'm coming to downtown Salt Lake. And I'm going to let you privileged white-ass protesters know about yourselves.
You was at the club, bottoms up when I first met you, couldn't get enough, had to get you straight to my bedroom.
I practiced my culture because it was illegal for my grandparents. I speak my language because it was illegal for my grandparents. I dance at powwows because it was illegal for my grandparents. I sing and drum because it was illegal for my grandparents. I smudge every day because it was illegal for my grandparents. I was raised by strong parents and grandparents. I'm a proud Mi'kmaq woman because of them. I know there's racism and countless other issues we deal with. But I just want to say how amazing it is to see other Indigenous creators on this app showing how strong we are. Wala'alio to all Indigenous creators and allies on this app. Thank you for being you.
His name was Tony McDade. His name was Tony McDade. His name was Tony McDade. He was murdered by the Tallahassee police yesterday morning. He was unarmed. He was a black trans man. His name was Tony McDade. Do not let his name fall upon your ears and stay silent. His name was Tony McDade. Tony McDade.
One to the 3 to the 1 to the 2. I don't trust cops and neither should you.
So you think you're slick for charging third-degree murder, huh? No intent? Couldn't even go for second degree. That means one of two things. One, you want these riots to continue, or two, you only believe in charging people the full extent of the law, unless they're police officers. Charging him with third degree shows me that the only reason you charged him in the first place is because there was riots. Fuck off with that shit.
Hey, the police use pepper spray and tear gas on people. This is a quick 1-minute video on how to give someone an eye flush. Practice at home if you're able to. Materials: gloves, water bottle, water. Approaching someone who has been pepper sprayed, tear gassed. Identify yourself as a helper and ask if they need your help. Have them kneel so you can access their eyes easier. Ask them if they're wearing contacts and have them take them out themselves. Have them stop touching their face. They can hold their legs, glasses, whatever. Grab their eyebrow, lift up to force the lid open, even if just a little bit. Spray the eye from the inside nose out towards the ear. Do the same to both eyes. Repeat as many times as wanted or needed. This will not stop all the pain, but is meant to help the person see again ASAP. Again, please only use water. It is most accessible and it is the safest to put in your eyes. It is what they use in labs all around the world. Most importantly, don't panic. Tear gas won't kill you. It is scary, but together we can push back. ACAB.
Wait, actually, when you think about it, it doesn't even make sense that looting is being framed as a point against the protesters. Like, the pro-cop people are like, oh, we need cops because they're the only way to prevent crime from happening. But during the protests, there were hundreds of cops on the street, and they did not prevent crime from happening. I mean, it's like, hey, we're protesting the cops because they're too busy enforcing authoritarianism and beating up minorities to actually fight any crime. Oh yeah, well, why didn't you stop those looters from looting? Well, why didn't you stop them? That's your job. Because we had our hands pretty full tonight enforcing authoritarianism and beating up minorities.
Please don't scroll and copy, link, share, whatever the fuck you do to get this to as many people as possible, because they are misreporting the Atlanta riots right now. You may have seen this picture right here where it shows people vandalizing and throwing firecrackers into the CNN Center. It's not for no reason. Many news organizations, including CNN, are trying to say that these riots are senseless and oh my gosh, they're attacking a leftist and liberal news organization, when no, that's literally not the case. They're attacking the police station that is inside of the CNN Center in Atlanta. Don't believe me? Here's proof. There you go. It says right there, Atlanta Police Department CNN Center Precinct. They're trying to make it seem like we're just attacking the CNN Center for no reason. It's not for no reason. It's not senseless like you try and make it out to be. Fuck the police.
When the Notre Dame was burning in Paris, we didn't say pray for Westminster Abbey. We didn't say pray for Trinity Church. We didn't say pray for St. Paul Cathedral. We said pray for Notre Dame because that's the building that was burning. So when you say all lives matter, I have every reason to believe that you say that to silence Black voices. If you're an ignorant bigot, then be an ignorant bigot, and don't try to hide it because we see it regardless.
I'm begging you to stop to watch this. This is my younger sister. Say hi to the people, Jenny. Last November, there was a school shooting at Jenny's high school. On this post, a football coach from the school said that he wanted to use protesters as target practice. Click click the link in my bio to send an email to the school calling for its immediate dismissal. This is absolutely unacceptable behavior and should be accounted for as such. Thank you.
Black facts you didn't know because who was going to tell you? You already know by the look, let's talk about the Black Panther Party. The Black Panther Party was founded in 1966 in Oakland, California, and consists of young people under the age of 20, both men and women. They had many goals, but their main was to stop police brutality. Sound familiar? Their mission was also to serve the community. Co-founders Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale created the 10-Point Program. This was a program that was pretty much a mission statement for the Black Panther Party. I want you guys to Google this and read it. Also, quick fun fact, you guys know the meal plan that schools had for breakfast and lunch? When the Black Panther Party learned that kids do better in school when they have a good breakfast, they fed 20,000 children in their community weekly. So why does your racist grandpa call them terrorists? Well, in order to protect their neighborhoods, they patrolled the police. And baby, they were strapped. Unfortunately, starting in 1968, there were about 8 massive shootouts. But they were never for violence, only self-defense.
Ladies, for your safety, please watch this video and listen closely to what I'm about to say. I went to a protest last night and witnessed what I believe was an attempt at sex trafficking. I don't have time to tell the full story, but in short, a man with a very large, expensive camera around his neck approached this group of teenage girls who did not appear to be protesting, trying to kind of lure them away from the crowd to do an interview, even though he had yet to interview anyone who was very clearly actually protesting, and he had not filmed any of the protest itself. If you're interested in reading the full story, I did create a detailed thread on my Twitter account. It's pinned to my profile at Cherry Emoji Girl, so it's super easy to find. It'll only take you like 2 to 3 minutes to read. In this thread, I also discussed the signs he exhibited that tipped me off and how I intervened with the situation. The girls even thanked me for intervening because they said that man was making them uncomfortable. But the only reason I was able to step in was because I was staying aware of my surroundings and I listened to my gut when it said that something wasn't right. Which is what you need to be doing if you're going to these protests. Please listen to your gut, protect yourself. Law enforcement very clearly is not doing their job right now, and evil people like sex traffickers will use that to their advantage. Please stay safe.
This is the 16th time I'm trying to fit this in a minute. Folded is an acronym for activism that I created and we should follow. Fluidity is about having a multi-tiered approach, meaning yes, some people are going to be willing to protest in the streets, some are not going to be. Should they be boycotting things? Is there money they can donate? What sources can they donate to? Are there bills they should be voting on? Organization is about setting forth those goals and making them clear and having them accessible to people who are already on your side and people who aren't. Longevity. Will this last longer than just how long people are willing to take off work and fight in the streets? Will this last longer than the weekend? Disruption. When you have a march that is just from point A to point B that you got a permit for, that disrupts nobody's lives besides the people who wanted to drive down that street. You have to disrupt the lives of the people in power. Expectation. This goes hand in hand with longevity. There needs to be a clear end goal expectation. That might take years to achieve, but there should be smaller achievements along the way to keep the momentum going and have clear expectations for everyone who signs on to this. And documentation. The media will not give you fair coverage. You have to get the fair coverage yourself. You have to put forth the stories while protecting the safety of protesters by
So when we riot, it's wrong. Okay, got it. How about we march in the streets? What's that? Oh, we're blocking traffic. Oh no. Okay, fine. How about we do something quiet? Oh, okay, cool. You like quiet. How about we kneel during the national anthem? What's that? It's disrespectful to this country. Look, why don't you just say it? Go ahead, say it. Say what you really mean. Oh, come on. Don't be shy. Just say it. Don't play coy with me. I've seen all your statuses about the protesters. Oh, they're looting. They're destroying property. They're being too loud. They're in the streets, blah, blah, blah. We all know what you really want to say. Oh, fine, I'll say it for you. You just don't want us protesting police brutality or systematic racism in ways that you cannot easily ignore or that it makes you uncomfortable. Now, was that so hard to say? You should have just started with that.
Trump is pushing us into complete fascism, and here's why I need to be terrified. When we look at the 14 defining characteristics of fascism right here, we see that we qualify for all but one, and that is supremacy of the military, the fourth point. As many of you may or may not know, Trump is trying to pass the Insurrection Act, which means he would govern the ability to deploy military troops in the United States to suppress civil disorder, insurrection, and rebellion. This would make us a militarized state. It would also mean that all orders had to go through him. He would have totalitarian rule, and your freedom of speech would personally be suppressed. Now, it's not coincidental that Trump declared Antifa a terrorist organization, despite the fact that over 70% of all terrorist acts domestically done in the United States have been done by alt-right groups, while only 2% have been done by alt-left groups. Since Antifa isn't a set-in-stone group, it's rather a loose coalition of people with anti-fascist ideologies. This means even if you don't have affiliation with Antifa, if they deem you as such, you can be charged with treason. This is a blatant violation of our civil liberties and our right to protest. If you're not outraged, you're not paying attention.
Go to the river where the water runs. Wash him deep where the tides are turning. And if you fall, and if you fall, hold my hand. Ooh, baby, it's a long way down to the bottom of the river. Hold my.
For those of you who miss prop content, I thought I'd show you how to undo a zip tie. In this example, I've accidentally locked it around my wrist. How clumsy of me. Lucky for me, I always keep a safety pin in my pocket, sometimes deep down or in the second pocket, so it's not visible to the naked eye. I then push the safety pin in between the mechanism and the actual band and pull it loose. Be careful, you're probably going to poke your wrist. You can also do this with a broken in half bobby pin or a paper clip in a pinch. The more you know.
I hate this country so much. They're killing literal people. People are continuously dying. And there's people complaining about how they want me to go back to eating candy on TikTok. First of all, I'm literally watching my people who look like me die. I don't care about candy. Do you want to know what I care about? Black lives. Because my life matters. I'm sorry that you want me to go back to making candies and eating TikTok things, but that's not who I am. I'm a black person. I don't want to die. I'm fighting for rights for children I even had. Do you understand how scary that is? I'm literally experiencing traumatic experiences daily. And you want me to talk about candy? Do you want to know? I want to talk about how police get to murder us, how they get time off, and nothing ever happens to them. But when we protest peacefully, they shoot us. People are dying and you're complaining about candy! I mean, party, I want to go to Pluto. I want to go to Pluto. I want to go to Pluto. Is that better? Is that better? Party, I want to go to Pluto.
It's me! Hi, Mom! Hey, girl! Hey, Mom! Hey, yo, this is my mom! Hey, Mom! Hey, Mom! Bye, Mom! Love you! Come on, you! We see you, kids! They started shooting at us! You can see we've just been walking. They formed this little area over here. We haven't been brutalizing anything. Don't shoot! Don't shoot! Please protect us. Please cover all the protesters. God, please don't let them start violence on us. Please don't let them start shooting it. No! Stop! Gosh, they're just shooting. They're just shooting at us! You're police officers! We gotta go. Come on. Come on.
Hey baby. As most of y'all know, we're stepping into Pride Month. And this is a reminder for all of my fellow LGBTQ plus fam and allies that Pride would not be possible without riots. It is due to the bravery of protesters and rioters and leaders like Marsha P. Johnson, a black trans woman that paved the way for all of us today. And if you consider yourself a supporter of Black Lives Matter and your Black Lives does not include all Black lives, including the Black lives in the LGBTQ plus community, then sis, we are not fighting the same fight. Walking around like, I love all black people except those black people over there. Got a lot of y'all looking real yuck. So happy Pride Month. Let's celebrate by returning to our roots and remembering how all this started. Have a wonderful day, lovelies.
I'm about to show you a video from a protest yesterday. If you see this and you still are confused on why people are protesting, rioting, showing signs of violence, actually burning stuff down, then you are part of the problem. Not saying I'm about to go riot, but if my brothers want to riot, I'm not mad at them, and I'm about to show you why I'm not.
Y'all talking about being, what about, I thought it was a peaceful protest. I thought y'all worried about a peaceful protest.
Two people were in the exact same place at the exact same time doing the exact same thing, not committing a crime. One of them was pushed away and sent home. The other was arrested. If you want to go riot, I'm not mad at you. I'm not.
This is one of my favorite photographs from 1967. It was taken in Milwaukee, by the way. And I'm going to show you how we live in two different Americas. I want you to pause this video and tell me in your history classes, what did you learn to refer to the summer of 67 as? Okay, pause. So were you taught that the summer of 67 was the summer of love? Or were you taught that there were 159 race riots across this country in 1967, in which almost every major city burned? See, in 1967, they were protesting police brutality, poverty, access to resources that were denied black people. And today, while we're rioting and our shot heard round the world was the death of George Floyd, we are still rioting for those same reasons. We need to make sure we get a different outcome this time.
Some of y'all is about to be real mad at me. And if you are, you got some serious soul searching to do, hun. If you attended every single women's rights march in your city, and all your Instagram captions say, men are pigs, rights for women, down with the patriarchy, yet you don't support the Black Lives Matter movement, even though it also represents black women who are equally affected by police brutality and racism, and you don't advocate for the indigenous women who are going missing and being murdered left and right, and you don't advocate for the Latino women whose children are being stripped away from them just because they want to give them a better life. Man, last time I checked, you weren't a feminist. If you know this tune, feel free to sing it along with me. You are nothing but a white feminist if you pretend that women of color don't exist. God, I love that song.
It'd be a shame if our allies and protesters use drones to start recording cops. Hope no one sees this.
I'm tired, I'm pissed off. I'm gonna be late to work and I really don't give a damn. I'm watching everything that's going on in the world right now. Everything that's going on. Watching all the videos. And all I'm seeing is that we are sitting here trying to protest the fact that we cannot be treated equal to white people. That our skin color determines how much force and how much abuse we take from police officers. And I watch the protests, and still, even during the midst of these protests, are they still being more brutal with black people? Why the fuck is white skin still more fucking valuable? Why the fuck is it still more valuable? What's the fucking point of all this shit, huh? What the fuck is the point?
Let's say for a science experiment, you wanted to make an eye flush that would counteract tear gas and pepper spray. You would need 2 ingredients, antacid and purified or distilled water. And you would need to wear gloves. Make sure it's original flavor or else it can be irritating. Make sure the active ingredients are aluminum hydroxide and magnesium hydroxide. Then all you need to do to prepare the eye flush is mix equal amounts antacid and water. Make sure to mix it very well. Then just use a funnel to distribute it back into the original bottles. I marked these LAW for liquid, antacid, and water. And there you go. A friend of mine who is anonymous by request made these very helpful images that walk you through it step by step. Pause if you need to read.
Just as phony as it can be.
We talked about often in serial killer cases is how many of them have victims escape, go to the police, tell the police, hey, this guy's a serial killer, and get laughed off. The Toy Box Killer was a serial killer / serial rapist who murdered over 60 women in the 1990s around Truth and Consequences. 2 separate women escaped from his personal torture chamber, went to the police, said, hey, that guy's a serial killer, he raped and tried to murder me, please do something about it, and the police went, nah, and let him kill people for 4 more years. It wasn't until a 3rd victim came forward in 1999 that they decided to look into it. In 1991, a 14-year-old victim of Jeffrey Dahmer escaped from his apartment naked, covered in blood, and drugged. He encountered 2 women who called the police to try to help him. The police officers returned him to Dahmer's apartment despite the women's protests that there was obviously something wrong. Dahmer killed and dismembered the boy that night and then went on to kill 4 more people before he was finally captured. After public outcry, the cops involved in the incident were suspended, but then reinstated to their jobs a few years later. Cops are not going to protect you from jack shit.
Did you know that in a study of abused women, over 80% said they wouldn't call the cops again because they were scared that their abuser would only get a slap on the wrist and that they would come back and hurt them?
Everyone should read this study. I'll read some highlights now, but you should go read the whole study. It is disturbing. It's called Domestic Violence Survivors Speak Out About Law Enforcement Responses, and it's written by the National Domestic Violence Hotline. It's a study of people who called into the hotline, both who have and have not interacted with the police. Of abused victims who hadn't interacted with the police, 80% were either somewhat or extremely afraid to call them in the future, because they thought the police would make things worse or that they would do nothing. Of people who did call the police, only 1 in 5 felt safer, a third felt less safe, and almost half felt no difference at all. 2 in 5 abused victims who called the police thought the police discriminated against them. 2/3 of people who contacted the police were either somewhat or extremely afraid to do it again. And 1/4 of victims reported being arrested or threatened with an arrest while they were reporting an incident.
This is one of the most tragic stories relating to a misuse of statistics. Sally Clark was a mother found guilty of murdering her 2 infant sons, and her lawyers claimed that it was a double case of sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDS. The prosecution claimed that the probability of this happening once was 1 in 8,543, and twice in a row would be 1 in 73 million, which they got by multiplying the probabilities together. But you're only allowed to do that when the events are independent, and there are very good reasons medically to doubt that assumption. But the prosecution claimed that Sally Clark had a 1 in 73 million chance of being innocent. And even if the 73 million figure is correct, which it's not, this is the wrong conclusion to make. This is the prosecutor's fallacy, which I covered in my last video. She served 3 years in prison until she was finally freed after more evidence surfaced, but she suffered so much trauma from the whole experience that she died of alcohol abuse 4 years later. Whenever statistics is used in the courtroom, we have to hold ourselves to the highest standards of rigor and accountability, because these are the costs of our mistakes.
So this one person is very adamant that I give Michigan fingers, so I thought I would... Oh, wow. Oh, I hate it. Now, you might be happy seeing some regular content on your For You page. Maybe you're sick of all the political videos because they just bum you out or remind you about the real world and you just want to forget about it for a minute. But some people aren't lucky enough to get to ignore it. For some people, this is your life we're yelling about, your civil rights, your right to live. Some people aren't lucky enough to forget about it because their name could be the next hashtag trending on Twitter. This is a message for anyone who doesn't think these protests are worth it. For anyone starting to get tired. For anyone who'd rather tune it all out. We're living through a rare moment when we have the momentum to topple the systemic racism that we've endured for decades. To give up now, to even slow down now, is to give up the momentum we have in this moment. Losing this opportunity is not an option. Keep marching, keep promoting the movement, and keep listening to the voices that have been silenced for so long.
This is important footage from the New York City protests that police don't want you to see.
Yet again, protesters were peaceful while police were violent.
Police tried to create a riot. You can see them illegally barricading a path to continue and pushing completely non-violent protesters. You can see this cop realizing I caught him on camera. And that's exactly why I'm screaming record, record, record. We need to record the cops and make sure they're held accountable because too much of their violence goes unseen. They wanted to do a mass arrest. You can see it with the white chain. Protesters remained peaceful and even took out mirrors, forcing cops to look at themselves. Dozens of cops guarded a statue of famous colonizer and murderer Christopher Columbus. This cop refused to wear a mask and laughed at protesters to ask him to wear one. Police don't want you to see incarcerated people from the Manhattan Detention Center joining in the protest. We are fighting to protect all Black bodies. Don't let anyone on this app fool you. This is no trend. Keep getting involved. The revolution is happening now.
Well, how do you expect us not to assault people? They are being disrespectful and threatening. Wait, we're allowed to assault people who are being disrespectful and threatening? Hey guys, great news! What is it? It turns out we've been allowed to beat the customers this whole time. Oh, yay!
If I'm on your For You page, I hope you can spare at least 1 minute of your time. On February 17, 2020, my friend, Manish Wilson, 17-year-old African-American teen, was a victim of a hit-and-run crash here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And as of May 27, 2020, the people held responsible for her death are being let out on a bond and will only be receiving a 30-day suspension on their license. Nothing will change the fact that my friend is gone. But I'm here to speak on this matter with everything that is going on right now. I'm here to say that Black Lives Matter. I'm here to say that Manish deserves justice. I'm here to say that George Floyd deserves justice. I'm here to say that I may not be Black, but I hear you. I may not know what it's like, but I see it. and I hear it, and things need to change. This reality of America needs to change.
Supreme Court case number 8, Mapp versus Ohio. May 23, 1957, a bomb went off at a man's house named Don King. The police then got an anonymous tip that the man who conspired in this bombing was staying at a woman's house named Dolry Mapp. They arrived at her house, asked her to come inside, and she said no because they didn't have a warrant. They came back a second time, knocked, and she didn't answer, and so they kicked in her door. This time they gave her a warrant, but when she snatched it and stuffed it in her shirt, they then confiscated it from her, and that paper has never been seen. So then they arrested her, and then they searched her house. During the search, they found gambling stuff, an unloaded pistol, and porno. And at this time, porno was illegal in Ohio. So they used this evidence in her case, and then she was convicted to 7 years. But remember, they had probable cause that a person was there, not pornographic images. So the evidence used in her case was unlawful because they didn't have a warrant for those images. She appealed all the courts, but they all agreed with her conviction. So then she appealed the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled 6-3 of Mapp's favor, and they focused specifically on the Fourth Amendment. There's a rule called the exclusionary rule, which means that evidence can't be used in a trial if it was obtained illegally. But this rule at the time didn't apply to the states. So because of this case, it now does.
One thing I hate most is a cherry-picking activist. Like, if you're gonna be pro-person of color, you need to be pro-disability, pro-LGBTQ+, pro-woman. If you're going to stand for one minority, you should stand for all of them. It's that unity type beat. And if you don't, do that, then me and you aren't riding on the same wave, and you're not woke or an activist.
Let me clear the air to the people that just aren't understanding. I hope you realize you sound really freaking stupid when you say that it's not most cops, it's just a few rotten apples. Well, Blue Lives Matter 69, we freaking know that, but some jobs just cannot afford to have rotten apples. Chris Rock said it best. Imagine you're sitting on an airplane and on the intercom you hear the pilot say, haha, I like to land, most of the times.
The most annoying thing is when I see a white girl born in LA on Instagram claiming that they're Hawaiian just because they moved there. Did you not realize that actual Hawaiians exist? And did you know that Hawaii is technically not a US state? So Sally shouldn't have been able to move there in the first place? Oh, you didn't know that? Sit down. Again. The literal United Nations recognizes that the United States is illegally occupying Hawaii. In February of 2018, the United Nations understands that the political status of the Hawaiian Islands is that of a sovereign nation state, meaning they're independent. They also understand that it is under a strange form of occupation by the United States, resulting from an illegal military occupation and a fraudulent annexation, meaning whatever claims they have to overthrowing the Queen is all a fraud. Native Hawaiians have been saying this for years, but of course the United States tries to cover it up. Hawaii was never a US state.
This is part 1 for misconceptions about the riots. This video or picture has been surfacing of, rioters beating this man up. Some people were saying that he's dead, he's not dead, he's alive, he is okay. What they aren't showing you is this. Him beforehand chasing around protesters with a sword, trying to kill them before they started jumping him. So yes, please do your research before you make assumptions about what happens at riots. A lot of the stuff is being misconstrued. Another instance is this. This man went on the news and said this.
Did somebody hit you with something? Yes, 2 black African Americans. They beat me through my open window that I yelled out, "All lives matter."
Wow. But here he is with a bow and arrow shooting protesters. And I suppose these are the 2 African American men he was talking about. He also had a knife. He also posted this. And then of course we have this woman. Don't let yourself be fooled.
In Cincinnati. We've been here for 9 hours. They haven't provided food, water, blankets. There are girls out here in sports bras and shorts, and it got really cold overnight. People are sleeping on concrete. It's really wild, and this is unjust. And all of it is unjust, but these people that are being held outside overnight at the jail, we're being denied basic human rights, and we're being forced to be in close quarters. There are so many people here. I can't stand up because they will confiscate my phone if they see it. But this is wrong, and I don't know if anyone knows what is happening right now. So I had to just say my piece. No food, no water, no blankets, 9 hours so far. And they've been processing people, but really
The police split up our group and snatched one poor girl who was not doing anything, pinned her down to the ground and arrested her. And that's why we all stopped and started asking, why are you arresting her? She has done nothing. We are literally peacefully protesting. They pepper sprayed a group that went to my left. They beat the group that went to the right with their nightsticks. NYPD is not here to protect us. They're not here to serve us. The system needs to be reformed. Great fucking cue.
Protesters didn't start the fire. Minneapolis cops did. We have pictures to prove it. Jacob Peterson started the fire. He broke all those windows. Cops say it wasn't him though, but his ex-wife confirmed it.
Okay, I'm sick and tired of people telling black people to get over slavery. All right, for argument's sake, let's get over slavery. Are we still not going to talk about Jim Crow, fighting for our civil rights, the present-day prison system, and how we're still being slain in these streets by our police officers? No? What about the racism we face on an everyday basis? Not to mention generational trauma is a real thing. So even if I did not personally face it, it has been passed down through my DNA. And those same people are the same ones that are like, oh, never forget 9/11. Yes, 9/11 was a horrible thing, but do we not, in retaliation, still bomb the Middle East every single day? Innocent children? Sounds like we're the terrorists, but we're not going to speak on it. And then there'd be the same ones that'd be like, oh yeah, I lost 6 ancestors in the Holocaust. The Holocaust was a horrible thing. But after the Holocaust, not only did survivors get reparations, they banned every single Nazi symbol in Germany. Do you know how many times I've driven down the street and seen the Confederate flag flying? Too many to count. Not to mention, you guys fucking lost. Who celebrates a fucking L that hard? Who? And it is the most anti-American shit. They try to separate from America. You guys are not patriots. You're
All right, I need you guys to spread this shit far and wide. I may not be the first to know, but I sure shit can be the last. You see this picture right here? I'm sure you have on Facebook with your little racist ass, weird ass Aunt Becky, cousin Sue sharing this shit. All lives matter. Blue lives matter. Look at the unity. First of all, that child does not look unified. He looks scared as shit, and he damn well should be. His name is Devonte Hart. He's 12 years old, and his adoptive mothers, Jennifer and Sarah Hart, forced him to take this photo. They adopted 6 black kids so that they could be considered white saviors in their community. And even though these kids were beaten and neglected and abused and begging for food from neighbors and teachers and for help for their community, DSS would show up and these women refused to give them up. So much so they said, if we can't have them, no one can. And they got drunk and drove their car with this child and all his siblings in it off a fucking cliff. So the next time people say all lives matter with this, tell them that.
This is probably going to be shadow banned, but I just got to say it, get it off my chest. For the people that really want to sit here and say, oh, rioting and protesting, that doesn't do anything, that doesn't help. The Boston Tea Party begs to differ, mama. Shays Rebellion begs to differ. The Whiskey Rebellion begs to differ. One of the biggest protests in our nation's history was the Revolutionary War, mama. I don't know what's not clicking. Miss Man, we needed a whole war to end slavery, mama. Not to mention in the 1960s, protests and riots got black people the right to vote. In the 1920s, white women got the right to vote from protests. What's not clicking, mama? Even the Pride Parade that we have today is an anniversary of the Stonewall riots in the 1960s to get gay and trans people more rights. I don't know what's not clicking. But anyways, ACAB, if you gonna loot, go to a chain. It's free reign. Thank you. Stay safe.
Have you ever needed to cut a board into thirds but suck at dividing fractions? Well, here's a hack for you. Flip your ruler over to use the metric side. You can line your edges of your board up with something you know is divisible by 3, like 15. The left side is at 0 and the right side is at 15. Put a mark at 5 and put a mark at 10. Use your square to then line up with the marks and cut your board into thirds.
Soldiers of color are treated poorly. As a woman and person of color, I was harassed and threatened while in the military. People are upset because I'm speaking out in an incomplete uniform. I've even been accused of lying about my service.
For service in Afghanistan.
Even after service, when I've shared my trauma with the VA, I was treated as if I was lying for compensation. While I'm crying out for a nation to see me and my contribution, people are more concerned with the look of my clothes than my life. I care about the freedom that the uniform represents, not that every piece is perfectly in place. There's injustice in the military.
The body of 19-year-old Lavina Johnson was found in a tent in Iraq. She had a broken nose, loose teeth, burns on her genitals, and a black eye. There were teeth marks and scratch marks on her upper body. Her back and right hand had been set on fire. There was a gunshot wound in the left side of her head. Keep in mind that she was roughly 5'1" and 100 pounds. The Department of Defense ruled her death a suicide.
Uh-oh, Governor's herding them up again. Get him, Governor. Bring him in. Come on, bring him in, Governor. Bring him in. Herd him in there. Come on, get him in there, Governor. Get him in that gate. There you go. Get him in there, Governor. Attaboy. Get him in there, Governor. There you go. Come on, Governor, get him in there. Who needs a sheepdog, huh? Good job, Governor. Get him in there.
A member of the LAPD just accelerated his vehicle into a crowd of protesters on the highway. I just watched it live on the news. And people want to pretend like there's no white privilege when you can take an AR-15 into a state house and scream in the face of a cop. And yet people who want to come out and protest the murder of George Floyd by police officers are met with cop cars running into them.
Hi, listen. This is my great-grandmother. I am 3 generations removed from slavery. I remember my grandmother telling me stories at 11 years old about her being a slave. Her and my great-grandmother together accumulated over 50,000 acres of land from their former slave owners, the Waverleys. My family currently resides on that land to this day. You say that racism does not exist and it was so long ago, but I had my great-grandmother sit me on her lap and explain to me why I will never be loved in this country. I had my grandfather sit me on his lap and tell me the exact same thing. And I had my grandmother hold me as I cried because my best friend was a little white girl and I wasn't allowed to see her anymore because her family didn't want us to be friends. This woman is the reason why I will stay in y'all face about Black Lives Mattering, because she fought for her rights and she did everything she could. So
class is in session, Karen. If you or someone you know uses the Bible against the queer community, this video is for you. I've studied theology to a degree my entire life, so here's what I know. Number 1, the word homosexual does not exist in the Bible. What? I know! In the original Greek and Hebrew text, the word that we now translate to homosexual actually translates to pedophile, or specifically, an older man who sleeps with a young boy. The sexual sin in question here is an abuse of power. This is the same with Sodom and Gomorrah. Yes, in Sodom and Gomorrah, it wasn't that they were gay, it's that they were gang raping people. The word homosexual wasn't introduced until the early 1900s when an American conservative company paid a German translator to put it into the Bible. We already know why the Catholic Church would want to support that and not the original text. Number 2, if you have a problem with the gender thing, God is genderless and we're created in his image. Number 3, if you have a problem with trans people, well, as a Christian, we believe that we are a soul placed in a vessel, and that means there's a chance that we were placed in the wrong vessel, just like any other birth defect. It's the matter of a chromosome, Karen. None of this is contradicted in the 10 Commandments or the words of Jesus, so basically God doesn't give a shit. Also, there were no white people in the Bible. Class dismissed.
I'm not going to stop talking about this because it needs to be said and it needs to be spread to everybody. A lot of people are going missing during these protests. There is no media coverage, no news on this. It's not getting spread to anybody. Our government is so intimidated by our voice that they are kidnapping kids and adults. People are literally dying during these fucking protests. And there's no fucking media coverage. Our government is literally censoring all of our fucking content from other countries. So all of these posts mean nothing. Please spread the news. Please let it be known that people are literally going missing during these fucking protests. I am literally fearing for my life that the next protest that I go to, I will go missing.
This is how you can help someone or yourself who is bleeding profusely at a protest, whether a wound from a rubber bullet or something else. First, you want to take your fabric or gauze or whatever and locate the wound. Let's say it's around here. You're going to take that and press as hard as possible on the wound, making sure not to injure the person, but to try and stop the bleeding. And you're going to keep doing that until you can get help. Or you can apply indirect pressure by going above the wound and pressing on there until the bleeding stops or you get help. Another way, if it's bleeding profusely enough, is to make a tourniquet. So you're going to go above the wound and try and make it tight until the bleeding stops. But you have to be careful because this way could cause someone to lose a limb if done incorrectly. And if somebody has something in their wound, do not remove it. You could cause more damage by trying to remove it. Please share and do it these videos. The more people who see them, the higher the chances that they could help somebody. Please stay safe. I love you all.
Life hack: wear a romper underneath a skirt because it gives you built-in shorts, which makes you completely prepared for whenever it's time to start your epic battle scene.
Austin police have critically injured an identified young man by shooting him in the head with birdshot rounds wrapped in cloth, and continued to shoot the medics carrying his body. They shot a known pregnant woman in the stomach. Detroit police have brutally beaten, tear-gassed, and arrested friends peacefully protesting. Rockford police dragged people from their cars and beat them last night. An NYPD officer called a woman a fucking bitch and threw her on the ground. She went into a seizure and had to go to the emergency room. Then more New York cops rammed into crowds of protesters with their cars. Chicago police announced a curfew and then raised the bridges out of downtown. Demonstrators were trapped and at the utter mercy of CPD roundups. A police supervisor ordered on the radio, "Gas them all." If you're not mad about this, you're not looking at it.
I don't know if you can hear me, but I took a minister with me to go to the police to ask for their badge and number because in Charlotte it is against city law and their contracts to not have a badge and police identification number listed. When I asked them to provide it, they refused, and when I told them they were in violation of that law, they ignored me. When I asked their consent to film, they said no, and I said, well, in North Carolina, of course, we are a one consent state, which means that if I consent to them being filmed, they are allowed to be filmed. And so they turned on their motorcycles, revved the engines as if they were going to run over the minister and I hobbling around on a cane, and a man of the cloth. So that's where we're at tonight. Expect more later.
Stop what you're doing and hear these names: Dominique Fells and Rhea Milton. Those are the names of two transgender black women that were murdered this week. This is Dominique Remy Fells. Dominique was 27 when she was found Monday alongside a river in Philadelphia, severely mutilated and partially dismembered. Her body wasn't even positively identified until today, and she was already misgendered by media. Rhea Milton was 25 at the time of her death. Authorities say that she was lured to the Liberty Township area of Ohio with the intent to be robbed, but the suspects that lured her out there ended up shooting her instead. Both of these trans black women died this week, and the media is giving it little to no coverage. I've only seen 2 TikToks talking about this, and I have a responsibility as someone with a platform as big as mine to bring this message to as many people as possible, that all black lives matter, not just the cishet ones. You can't be pro-black and anti-LGBT. That's not how it works. You don't get to pick and choose which black lives matter. They all do.
Get some water and hydrate because class is not over yet. Michael Donald. Michael Donald is documented as the last person in U.S. history to have been lynched. Now let me give you a little bit of background. In 1981, there was a black man on trial for the murder of a white police officer. The race is for context. Now, that ended in a mistrial. The KKK had already had a discussion that if this trial did not go in their favor, they would take matter into their own hands, which is what they did. Michael Donald had absolutely nothing to do with this trial. They saw him walking down the street. He was headed to the store. They held him at gunpoint, slit his throat, and hung him by a tree. Now, if you realizing that you were not taught this in school, you learned this as an adult, or you're just learning this now, there are probably other people who are in that same box. So I ask that you share this knowledge because guess what? Ignorance is no longer an excuse.
Hello and welcome back. This is a recap of Anonymous's last 24 hours. They have weaponized the K-poppies, as seen here. Please pause to read. They leaked a phone call between Michael Jackson and a friend shortly before his death where he claimed he feared for his life and thought that they might make him overdose. On the topic of celebrity death, they brought up Paul Walker and his alleged murder for this reason, and Avicii's alleged murder for this reason. Anonymous Brazil doxed Bolsonaro, Tropical Trump, and his cabinet members, as well as some family, resulting in protests throughout the country. Anonymous also leaked over 150 emails between Bolsonaro and others mentioning Trump. And lastly, but surely not least, they hacked and then took down the Minnesota State Senate site and replaced the homepage with this message. And as always, thank you for watching, stay safe, and stay tuned.
Okay, let's talk about these crime statistics that I've been seeing thrown around that are apparently from the FBI. Now, first of all, why is this being taken per 1 million of the murderer's race and not the victims? This is giving the false illusion that if you were a white person killed in 2013, you were about equally as likely to have been killed by a black murderer as you were a white murderer. But this is disputed by the very source that was cited. What really bugs me about people using crime statistics like this is they're trying to sneakily suggest that black people are just more violent. Either you believe that black people are just genetically predisposed to violence, and if that's the case, I honestly just don't even know how to reason with you anymore, or you recognize that there must be external factors contributing to the inequity, like, I don't know, the war on drugs, redlining, gun violence, poverty. Are you bringing that same energy to those discussions, or does your passion for crime statistics end at poning liberals?
Shout out to my mom serving beans and tortillas. And we got your beans throwing that's like Shakira. For ice, bitch, we sending shots to tequila. Free all them kids, man, I can't forget my tia. Shout out to my mom serving beans.
Here's an example of a misleading graph out of the state of Georgia. So these are the top 5 counties in Georgia with confirmed cases of COVID-19, and it appears like the numbers are falling, but the dates on the x-axis aren't even in order. It jumps from April 28th to 27th to the 29th, then to May, then back to April. The office of the governor had to apologize for this. I honestly can't wrap my head around how any statistician would have approved of doing this, but it was published by Georgia's Department of Public Health. I mean, forget about the graph. Even low case numbers in themselves can be misleading because not everybody who's sick gets tested, so the number of confirmed cases is only a fraction of the true cases. Moreover, test results take some time to come in, so there's a lag in the information, so the apparent downward trend is not really as optimistic as it seems. There are people out there breaking quarantine and lawmakers easing restrictions because of data just like this, and it comes at the cost of human life. If you've never bothered to pay attention in your stats course, please don't become a politician.
That's exactly how I feel. That's exactly how I feel. That's exactly how I feel.
If you have opened your mouth to say that the riots are not what MLK would have wanted, I honestly can't disagree with you. I didn't know the nigga. But since you apparently did, I hope that in the same breath that you are acknowledging that Dr. King was the one who said that he would do everything he could to keep his protests nonviolent, but that riots were inevitable when people go unheard for too long. You best be quoting your good friend Martin when he said near the end of his life that the old optimism he had in the civil rights movement was a little superficial and needed to be tempered by a solid realism in the face of America's commitment to devaluing black lives. That his principles of nonviolence were based in practicality and morality. And if you ask me, to have a moral argument, you need to be able to trust that your opponent has a moral compass. I wish that I could hear what Dr. King would have to say about the riots today, but I can't because he was murdered by the US government for being too dangerous to who? To what? The white supremacist infrastructure that this entire country was built upon.
I want you to show me if you can get far. Step on the gas. Step on the gas. Step on the brakes. Step on the brakes. Now step on the gas. Step on the gas. When I say boom, 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 you say bam, bam, bam. No pause in between. Come on, let's jam. Step on the gas. Step on the gas. Step on the brakes. Step on the brakes. Step on the brakes. Step on the brakes. Step on the gas. Step on the gas. I'm glad you know which way to go, but it ain't gonna stop me. Here we go.
I'm a spiritualist in Britain, which means a lot of the content that I see on here is through witch talk, which culminates a lot of pagan and spiritual practices from multiple cultural backgrounds, and due to cultural homogeny, basically blends anything that isn't a standard Abrahamic religion. But I'd like to make it clear that these things are different. Just because you're a spiritualist, or maybe just because you're pagan or Wiccan in particular, it does not mean you have a right to practice anyone else's religion. Native American beliefs are closed practices. Voodoo, hoodoo, and sub-Saharan African practices, Creole practices, are closed practices. They are not for white people or people that are not from those backgrounds. There are certain spiritual practices that have been adopted by white, young, pagan, Wiccan, or spiritual people that belong to closed cultures. We took them without permission, and that was wrong. From now on, we should be working harder to recognize those things and stop practicing them, as it is respectful to do.
You know, it's funny, after everything the blacks went through, the Latins went through, the Asians went through, and the LGBT community went through, and everything we're still going through, that we still want equality and not revenge. People of color in the LGBT community, we walk around every single day with targets on our backs, a gun to our head. We bear no arms, and yet we still get shot when we ask for peace. We get oppressed because of the color of our skin or the way that we choose to live our life. People talking about, oh, the looting and destruction is unnecessary. Well, no justice, no peace. And before the looting and destruction even happened, people were still being shot by rubber bullets and hit with tear gas. But when the protests for haircuts happened, there wasn't a tear in sight, not a bullet to be found, and Donald Trump didn't say peep. And some people seem to not understand that in the Black Lives Matter movement, we never said that all lives didn't matter. We just said pay attention to Black lives, because obviously y'all don't care about our lives enough to step on our necks and keep us from breathing.
If all lives matter, why aren't all the veterans getting their fair due? If all lives matter, why are the homeless getting pushed off the streets, and where are they going? If all lives matter, where are all the services for the poor in both urban and rural communities? If all lives matter, why are children being separated from their parents at the border? If all lives matter, why are natives still disappearing and no one's talking about this? If all lives matter, why are innocent Black lives being taken? If all lives matter, why are American-born Asians being blamed for corona? If all lives matter, why are LGBT clubs still getting raided to this day? If all lives matter, why are Arabs and South Asians being stopped at the airports? If all lives matter, why are men and women and children not being taken seriously when they get sexually assaulted? Did you really mean all lives? Or did you just mean you?
Police shot up a gay bar for helping protesters. Yes, you heard that right. The owner of the bar in the parking lot was helping protesters by washing out pepper spray and giving them water and food. And so the cops decided to put an end to that. Well, that can't really be why. Come on. Oh, but it is. As a matter of fact, the spokesperson for the sheriff's office admitted that that is exactly why they did it. And then proceeded to defend the officer's use of less than lethal force, despite the sheriff's office's use of force policy saying that it cannot be used in a scenario like this. The cops shot up a gay bar who was trying to help protesters, admitted that was why, used excessive force, admitted to that, and then tried to defend it, despite it being against their own policy. Yeah.
So I need to share this because I know various people that vacation there, and the city is covering this up, so this needs to be fucking out here in the world, okay? The hangout in Gulf Shores and various spots around Gulf Shores, girls are being sex trafficked, okay? People are being sex trafficked there, and the city is not caring. The articles keep getting taken down. I need people to know this. They drug young girls there, and they're taken, never to be seen again, sold as sex slaves. Like, this is some real shit that no one is talking about. I vacationed there. Multiple of my girlfriends have vacationed there. Like, this is not okay. Like, please get this fucking word out.
Hey, Plant Peeps. I'm happy to announce that after talking to my family, doing my research, and, dropping a big chunk of change, I got some new boobs. Oh, no, not mine. These are fine and quite lovely, actually. I mean, I see you looking at my barrels, but I'm talking about this thing. This is a boob cactus. This is an aptly named monstrose variety because, well,
It looks like it has a bunch of titties on it. Couple of little poke there on the nipple area.
I would say this is a good, solid C cup. But if you're worried about size, yeah, I got these as well. I'm a firm believer of go big or go home. They're summer growers like most cactus and do require a little bit more water in the spring and summertime.
Do I have them available? Yes, I do. And due to social distancing and a ban on most elective surgeries, these may be the only boobs you can get.
Ooh, this is my favorite argument to rebuttal. I'm gonna get your stupid ass. Alright, you big dummy. Let's use yet another analogy. Ignore the cord, my phone was dying. And to all the Ben Shapiro dick riders, you might want to block me right now. You're gonna hate this one. Let's say you have a bag of 85 marbles, right? 85? 85. Let's go. 85. 72 of those marbles are blue and 13 of those marbles are red. If I tell you to pull out 20 marbles and half of those marbles are red, you were looking for those. Don't act special. Take that analogy and apply it to the number of black people incarcerated in our prison systems. There's no way you're gonna sit here and tell me that the police don't put a target on our back when we make up that 13% of the population and almost 50% of the population in prisons. That just doesn't make sense. Another thing, I'd prefer my followers to be a bunch of open-minded and smart people. So if you want to laugh at my goofy jokes and all that shit, but you want to turn your head whenever I'm spitting facts like this, unfollow me, block me.
6 months down and this shouldn't even funny. The vision wasn't clear when we saw 2020. Streets alone and quiet on a day that's warm and sunny. But are you worried about the world? Are you worried about the money? Are you thinking of the pain? Are you thinking of the tears? Are you seeing all the loss? Are you seeing all the fears of the ones stuck in beds? Or the ones in the streets? Or the ones in the cars driven by the police? Is this the worst thing? Or is this how things change? Are you trying to close the book? Are you trying to turn the page? Are you gonna use your voice? Or are you gonna sit and wait? Sit and watch it pass you by until it hits you in the face. And when seasons fade and we go back to school, will we see this in classrooms and see it in booths? Will we stop letting freedom be something with rules that are based around things that we don't get to choose? We're not going back to 6 months ago, cause maybe it's time to be uncomfortable, it's time to be responsible, it's time to let the people know, it's time to put more focus on the schools and less on the wars. We need to be washed over by the waves and we're on the shores. We need to see less people in the graves and less in the morgues, cause none of us are free until all of us are free. The vision's getting clearer, here's to 2020.
So I recently had the misfortune of coming across this video.
This is America.
First of all, these numbers are actually just based on a survey of 243,000 people. That's about 0.07% of the American population, 1% of which reported being victims of violent crime. These figures appear to be extremely specific, as if we counted every single one, but they're actually just extrapolations from a sample. Even if these numbers were close to the true figures, even if I give you that, if white people really had it that much worse than black people, wouldn't that just make America more horrible? The protests going on right now are not a matter of black on white crime or white on black. This is about a corrupt justice system that is letting police get away with murder. Well, if you didn't like it here, why don't you just leave? Right, because when the government said you couldn't own slaves anymore, did people just move away? Pretty sure they started a civil war. If you really love America as much as you say you do, why not get on board to make it a better place?
Austin police have critically injured an identified young man by shooting him in the head with birdshot rounds wrapped in cloth, and continued to shoot the medics carrying his body. They shot a known pregnant woman in the stomach. Detroit police have brutally beaten, tear-gassed, and arrested friends peacefully protesting. Rockford police dragged people from their cars and beat them last night. An NYPD officer called a woman a fucking bitch and threw her on the ground. She went into a seizure and had to go to the emergency room. Then more New York cops rammed into crowds of protesters with their cars. Chicago police announced a curfew and then raised the bridges out of downtown. Demonstrators were trapped and at the utter mercy of CPD roundups. A police supervisor ordered on the radio, "Gas them all." If you're not mad about this, you're not looking at it.
Around 1 a.m. on June 1st, Washington, D.C. allegedly went dark, meaning Trump went into his bunker, cell phones were jammed, and no protesters were seen. This video shows a 5-hour break in Snapchat posting. Here's an aerial photo of the city before it went dark. All of these live cams are supposed to be active, which as you can see, they're not. Accounts are being hacked. You can see they all have the same message, saying that D.C. is safe. This person was allegedly in D.C. at the time of the blackout. Silencers were seen on guns. You don't need silencers to shoot rubber bullets. Rapid gunfire and explosions were the last that were heard of DC protesters. The blackout could be fake news, but seeing the bots and the deleted tweets, stay educated, save this video, share it around in case it gets deleted, and above all, be safe.
We all heard J.K. Rowling this time, right? Like we all heard that. Like we've all seen this, yes, and we've all mutually decided that it's disgusting. Oh, she's doubling down. Would you look at that? Oh, would you look at that? Can we be done with her now? Can we? We can all agree it's time to be done with her now, right? Like we're gonna stop pretending that she was inclusive, right? Like, we're done? Please say we're done, because I'm done. And also very angry. We all heard J.K. Rowling this time, right? Like we all heard that. Like we've all seen this, yes, and we've all mutually decided that it's disgusting. Oh, she's doubling down. Would you look at that? Oh, would you look at that? Can we be done with her now? Can we? We can all agree it's time to be done with her now, right? Like we're gonna stop pretending that she was inclusive, right? Like, we're done? Please say we're done, because I'm done. And also very angry.
I knew it was going to happen, and then it did, because yesterday I saw an article that was like, oh, the possible intoxicants in George Floyd's system could have contributed to his death. Shut the hell up. First of all, we all know you're talking about weed when you say that, and once again, the media is associating the unjust death of a black man with his possible use of cannabis, because that justifies it for some reason. I remember, even during the Trayvon Martin case, they were like, oh, we found a weed pipe in his bedroom, and oh, George Zimmerman thought he was crazed out of his mind on marijuana. No, that's not what weed does, and when you put those stupid, ignorant statements out to the public, in their eyes, into the media's eyes, the conversation quickly shifts to, oh, what did George Floyd do wrong? What could he have done differently? Did he smoke a joint earlier in the day? Oh, that probably contributed to him dying. No, a police officer knelt on his neck while he screamed he couldn't help for 9 minutes. I don't care if you smoked a joint an hour before. You would have died. Anyone would have died. And the fact that that officer is not being charged with first-degree murder, and the fact that every time a black man is murdered, the conversation shifts to what he did wrong is ridiculous, and I'm so tired of it.
My therapist was once like, do you ever want to go to sleep and never wake up? And I was like, yes. Yes. And she was like, that's a suicidal thought. And I was like, oh. Well, you got me there, bitch. You got me there. Oh my god, my eyebrows.
You are absolutely right. Not everything is about race. However, this is. Because if a young white male can be escorted out of a school by police officers wearing a bulletproof vest that they provided for him after shooting his classmates and teachers, why are young black men and women being murdered because white police officers are threatened by the color of their skin and walking away from these situations only being fired from their job? It's about race.
Please listen. Please don't scroll. Please, please, please listen. Racist, Mexicans, and Latinx people have targeted black people in my city. They are shooting any black person that comes in a city called Little Village or anybody going in Cicero. It's where I live. It's like by Chicago, but like a ways away from Chicago. Basically, Latino people have incited a race war because they profiled all black people in rioting. So basically they're like, oh, we're protecting our neighborhoods from looters, but they're only targeting black people. Please, please, please spread awareness about this. The police aren't doing shit. Actually, they teamed up with the police to harm black people. They stabbed a pregnant woman. They stabbed a baby and a father. They're jumping black people. Please help.
Facts that could one day save your life. If you ever get lost, remember the rule of threes. Starvation will kill you in 3 weeks. Thirst will kill you in 3 days. Cold will kill you in 3 hours. Lack of oxygen will kill you in 3 minutes, and panic will kill you in 3 seconds. If your hair starts to stand up like this, you're about to get struck by lightning. If you cannot find shelter in the next 10 seconds, there's a squad that's supposed to minimize damage. It looks like this. Cover your ears so you minimize hearing loss. Only the balls of your feet are touching the ground. Touch your ankles together and pray to God. If you ever think someone is following you while you're driving or while you're walking or riding a bike, make 4 consecutive right turns and you'll be right back where you started. And if they're still following you, you might be in danger. Best thing some people have reported doing is going straight to the police station and not stopping until they got there. I kind of enjoy this. Like for part 2?
You know why Rosa Parks is who you learn about? Fun fact, Rosa Parks was not the first black woman to refuse to get up from her seat on the bus. In fact, one of the first was Miss Claudette Colvin in 1955. On March 2nd of that year, she was riding the city bus on her way home from school. And the driver told her to give up her seat for a white lady, but she refused. She even told the bus driver, "It is my constitutional right to sit here. I paid my fare just as much as she did." She said later she felt like Sojourner Truth herself was holding her down on that seat, refusing to let her move. But the NAACP decided against using Claudette as their symbol for the bus boycott. Because she was only 15 years old and she got pregnant out of wedlock, they knew that fact would be used against them. They had to find a nice, pure black to represent their cause. So eventually they settled on Miss Rosa Parks, a light-skinned, school marm type lady who seemed very non-threatening. From the beginning, civil rights has always been tailored around white comfort in order to be successful.
Last night I was at the protest. Now I wasn't at the 3rd Precinct and I wasn't at the University of Target. We started at the Hennepin Government Center and we made our way over to the Gay 90s bar. There was a full police line, so we began to chant "Justice for George" and say his name. All along the trek, there were people lined up protecting the small businesses that had in fact been vandalized and not letting anyone loot anything. Any protesters inciting violence were removed from the group and shamed to leave. We were unarmed, just saying his name, and within 5 minutes, we were tear-gassed, rubber bullets flying everywhere, and chased and separated away. The very people who were guarding and protecting the businesses that had been vandalized were tear-gassed by the police. The medical volunteers who were helping aid the wounded when dispatch wouldn't show up were tear-gassed by the police. There was violence, but it was only after being antagonized by snipers and police lines.
Well, just picked up supplies, about ready to go. I'm just going to tell you how I prepare. Most important is good footwear and good socks. The police will chase you and they will step on your feet. Then a good sturdy jacket for the elements as well as whatever I'm going to get hit with. Then I spent about $25 on supplies. About 6 of these. I really like the nozzle. It makes it really easy to spray, and water is always useful. Even the police stop for it. One of these bottles I'm going to dump out halfway and fill the other half with a liquid antacid. Active ingredients being aluminum and magnesium hydroxide. It's really good to counteract the effects of CS gas and pepper spray. On that note, because pepper spray is a base, to counteract it you need an acid. So I like to get a bunch of these little guys, lemon squeeze, and a handful of these. You can put the lemon on there and use it to wipe off your face and hands and otherwise. It's always good to have a mask. I would also say have goggles, but I'm blind as a bat without them. On that note, never ever wear contacts. I got a power brick charged up so I can keep recording, and a good sturdy umbrella, which I would have even if it wasn't raining. And there you have it. Stay strong out there.
I don't want to dwell on this for too long because it makes me pissed off just thinking about it, but I still need to cover it. There is a very prominent Asian community on TikTok that are doing the exact same shit as the rest of you, like just making videos, having fun, or even just cooking food, right? But the fact that I can't see a fucking video from anywhere of Asian heritage without seeing fucked up COVID comments really pisses me off. We are just barely starting to fucking recover, and yet you fuckers are still deciding to say shit like this. And it's not a joke either. There's no point in joking about shit like this. Like, no, you're just a fucking racist. So if you're one of the people still leaving these fucked up COVID comments literally anywhere at this point, you're a fucking piece of shit.
PSA. There is currently an armed and militarized gang committing acts of violence and arson amongst the protesters in Minneapolis. This group is well known for disturbing the peace. They are also known for posing a lethal threat to those who they encounter, even unprovoked. When not falsely posing as protesters, they can be identified by their badges. They can be found driving around in cop cars. They can be found abusing their power. They can be found defending Nazis and white supremacists. They can be found with the full weight of their bodies crushing the airways of a black man who has already been incapacitated. These people often come in the disguise of those who are meant to protect and serve our communities.
Hey, stop scrolling. This is not related to my usual content about race relations or linguistics, but it is important. Right now, the government is trying to sneakily pass this bill called the Earn It Act. Now, on its face, it's supposed to be a way to help prevent child exploitation and trafficking online. And while that is certainly a noble goal, the language of the bill does not really allow for any nuance and provides a lot of backdoors for online censorship. It could even be used to basically ban end-to-end encryption and effectively eliminate the concept of online privacy once and for all. Now, literally everyone on the right, on the left, in the center, moderate, libertarian, anarchist, Republican, Democrat, I don't care. Literally every American should be against that. Literally everyone should recognize the dangers of having no online privacy. So take a minute to look at it. Take a minute to sign the petition I'm going to link in my comments. And also, please take a minute to email your senators and tell them, this ain't it.
If you've never been in a situation where you needed help and called the police, and then the police turned the situation against you violently, then that is an example of privilege, and you do not understand why this movement exists.
At the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City, American sprinters Tommie Smith and John Carlos won gold and bronze in the 200-meter race. At the medal ceremony with the world watching, the two men used this platform to make a statement. First, they took off their shoes and wore black socks to represent black poverty in America. John Carlos unzipped his jacket as a nod to the American working class, and Tommie Smith wore a black scarf to symbolize black pride. And then, during the national anthem, the two put on black gloves, and instead of placing their hands over their hearts, they raised their fist in support of the civil rights movement, creating this iconic moment. But at the time, this protest was heavily scrutinized.
The Olympic 200 meters gold and bronze medalists had been suspended by the United States Olympic Committee and given 48 hours to leave Mexico.
When they returned home, their athletic careers were over and they received hateful messages and even death threats. But this moment inspired many and still does to this day, and continues to be used as an important symbol of the civil rights movement.
If you care about the injustices that are ravaging through the United States right now, please watch this. So if you're anything like me, you've been really overwhelmed with the number of things there are to take action on right now. Also, like, people are lazy and work full-time jobs, so it's hard to dedicate a lot of time to this. So being the black girl and STEM I am, I created a website that lets you enter your information and it auto-populates email templates to take action on, so literally all you have to do is hit send. Please share copy link.
Right, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush.
Alright y'all, let's talk ghetto until proven fashionable. This time, let's talk those acrylic nails. The ones that you guys like to give credit to the Kardashians and the Jenners for. You may be surprised to note that nail art, such as this, did not originate with a Kardashian or a Jenner. In fact, it was created in the black community. Tim's nails go way, way back. Here you could see Diana Ross rocking long red nails. Here's Danielle Luna rocking her long acrylic nails in 1966. We cannot forget the most famous name in acrylics, Miss Flojo herself. I mean, come on, just look at this. The Flojo nails are a serious thing. So why do we keep giving credit to folks who really had nothing to do with the creation of nails, such as these pierced nails worn by Kim Kardashian? Despite being credited to Kim, here is Janet Jackson in 1998 with, you guessed it, pierced nails. Isn't it interesting how things such as long nails are deemed ghetto until they're considered fashionable?
As a former student of the Little Miami School District, I made a video calling out the school for the racism and discrimination that the administration overlooked. Over the past few days, it has been brought to my attention that the school has been sweeping more things under the rug than racism, discrimination, and death threats. If you're watching this, please like, share, and comment. These students deserve justice. A student who I won't name for privacy reasons who attended the school was facing extreme bullying by his peers that the school overlooked. Eventually, this led him to taking his own life. Someone who's friends with the student reached out to me to tell me that they had made a condolence post, sending love to him, his family, and his friends. The school contacted her and told her to take it down. They even went as far as reaching out to her friends to tell her to take it down. Their reasoning for this was that she was promoting suicide and that it was illegal and it was a crime. The truth is, the school felt guilty for not doing enough for their student, which led him to taking his own life. Unfortunately, there is no screenshots of the school saying this because everything was verbal. Somehow the students who attend the school are still trying to silence me and going as far as making fake rape allegations. I will be taking legal action, but I'll need all the support I can get. Please share this.
If you are my friend or my supporter or whatever the case may be, you will listen to this and you will not skip and you will fill this out. The link is in my bio. The NAACP is calling on the United Nations themselves to step in and classify the mistreatment of black people in the United States, which means if sanctions need to be applied, they will apply them. And if there are any further mistreatment by black people, the U.S. will face serious legal ramifications across an international spectrum. I need you guys to really take a few minutes, email this. The emails are right here. You're gonna fill that in, copy the template, and share it with everybody. The link is going to be in my bio. If you are watching this, do not scroll over this and fill this out.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Black Delegation News Report. My name is Nick and well, that's all you need to know. I'm here with some information from the past 24 hours, so stick with me. We're going to head up north to Ann Arbor, Michigan today where protesters took to the streets and have blocked highways, basically stating, we will be heard one way or the other. We head on down south to Louisville, Kentucky where a line of white protesters formed a barrier between black protesters and the police, basically stating, we don't want you fucking with them in these streets. We head on over to Minneapolis last night where protests led to the fire of a police precinct. You heard me correctly. The governor issued the National Guard to come in. The president tweeted, when the looting starts, the shooting starts, basically issuing a death threat. In the words of John Lewis, if not us, then who? If not now, then when? Stay safe. Watch each other's back because the game is on. As always, I'm Nick. This is the Black Delegation News Report. Stay black, stay proud. I'm out.
So a few years ago, I got my Ancestry DNA test back, right? And so it updates. So I'm like 44% Nigerian, 20% Cameroon, Congo, and a bunch of other things, right? So I live in St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis, Missouri was home to one of the most famous human zoos in the country. And so what they'll do is white people will go over to these places and they'll kidnap these indigenous people and bring them over to America. There's Japan, the Philippines, the Congo, like that. And they'll put them in these cages, in these big ass spaces to make it look like they're at home. And white people will come over and poke them with sticks and pat them on the head and treat them like monkeys and pets and animals and things like that. But there was a particular boy by the name of Otabenga who was a guy, he was very sweet, fun loving, but his teeth were very sharp, so they called him a cannibal, right? And he was just the hype of the town. Everyone loved him. Nobody but racist white people.
Alright, baby, let's be absolutely clear. Going out to protest does not absolve you of racism.
Marching and chanting Black Lives Matter is not the same as interrogating your whiteness or confronting your anti-blackness. It is simple to look at the racism of policing in America and think that you found the enemy, but white supremacy is far more devious and ingrained in your understanding of the world than you give it credit. I'm glad that you finally agree that they should stop killing us, but have you thought about how the microaggressions you commit daily dehumanize us? Have you repented from appropriating and fetishizing our bodies and cultures? Are you aware of how you've weaponized white fragility in your workplace? Do you understand how your disbelieving defensiveness anytime that you're implicated in white supremacy is violent? Did you think that there might be things that you should not do or say while protesting? Have you considered how the way you show up might further disrespect or endanger the black lives you say matter, or is this all performative for you? Are you just doing this so when quarantine's over you can say, obviously I'm not racist, I was out there fighting for you? Will you still be fighting for us behind closed doors? Will you show up for the small everyday battles of anti-racism, or just the ones where you can get a pic on Instagram? Am I happy so many of y'all are out here? Yes, but am I gonna let you piggyback off a revolution for clout? Absolutely not.
Ladies and gentlemen, the volume inside of this bus is astronomical. It is way loud.
Hey, what's up guys, my name is Tavius Moore and I really need your help. Please, if you can, like, share, and comment on this video and spread the message to as many people as you can. I'm going to be touching up on 2 different subjects about these protests. Please listen. Number 1 is that a lot of protesters are going missing. There is no media coverage, no news outlets on this, and I don't know what else to do except for to spread it on here. And number 2 is that America is censoring a lot of our content from other countries, and it's not getting spread. Nobody's talking about it. I'm fearing for my life that the next protest that I go to, I will go missing or I will die. I'm fearing for my life and I don't know what else to do.
It's been a tactic for police departments all over the country to change curfews last minute to confuse protesters. That way protesters will be trapped and then they can arrest them. In Washington, D.C., multiple protesters were trapped after police changed the curfew and started arresting people. Thankfully, somebody who was watching this happen opened the doors to his home to allow multiple protesters to take refuge. After police saw this, they tear gassed the house. Police also tried to enter from the back gate to arrest everybody who was inside. This was all under the authority of the chief and the mayor. The police also told the owner of the residence that nothing would happen if they ordered food, that they should be able to get food delivered. However, when the food arrived, they refused to let them through because of the curfew. They were trying anything to try to get inside of that house and arrest those protesters. If you don't know, curfew does not apply in a private residence. What they were doing is completely illegal. This happened tonight, and this happened on the night of the most peaceful protests. Police just want to arrest people.
Alright guys, we have some breaking news in regards to Antifa's involvement within the... There's no evidence indicating Antifa involvement in the DC protests, but there's evidence that far-right groups urged violence? And this was all discovered the same day Trump announced on Twitter that Antifa was going to be a terrorist organization, despite the fact that it's not an organization, rather a political protest movement? I mean, guys, let's not be surprised. White supremacists are constantly trying to start a boogaloo or a civil war. And I mean, they discovered the similar evidence in Minnesota. It's almost like Trump is trying to defend the alt-right. I wonder why. It's not like in Charlottesville he said that the neo-Nazis were good people after they celebrated running over a woman and killing her. It's not like he had numerous cabinet members that were alt-right members. It's not like he's a glorified alt-right figurehead. I'm not surprised whatsoever. I'm just waiting for the Republicans to talk about this new information.
Hey guys, it's Kim with the Black Delegation News Report. I have a very important thing to say about this. So by now I'm sure we're all aware about the Black Panther movement that's taken place in Atlanta, Georgia. However, this guy on Twitter, Wolf the Red, made a very interesting thread about them on Twitter. First things first is that the new Black Panther Party, which this group is not, also has roots in Atlanta, Georgia, and is a hate group. He goes on to say that there's another one with a different name called the Revolutionary Black Panthers, who is also in Atlanta, Georgia. They're also a hate group. This woman known as Queen did an interview in which she stated that the name of their group was the new Black Panthers, but they've retracted that statement. However, they then clarified to say that they were the Black Panthers Revolutionaries Atlanta chapter. Still a red flag. So he did some searching and he found this guy's Instagram. As it turns out, none of them are actually activists, they're all actors. Also, Queenie loves cops. But yeah, basically the long and short of it is that they're not an activist group. Don't trust them.
Well, Trump tweeted this today. And while I thought I could spend today nursing the chemical burns in my hands, the military is currently on the streets of my city, hoping to forcefully quell the unrest that is erupting everywhere. All this while the Trump administration is planning on designating Antifa a terrorist organization. And since Antifa isn't actually a strict organization, but a collection of individuals who consider themselves to be anti-fascist, well, that basically means any protester. The government just came up with a reason to call any protester a terrorist. As such, under the Patriot Act, you have no rights. And for those of you who are against the rioters and looters because a peaceful protest is more powerful, I'd like you to look up the protests against the Iraq War, which were some of the largest in history. Nothing happened because the state did not care. Their power was not threatened. To paraphrase Thomas Jefferson, when the people fear the government, that's tyranny. When the government fears the people, that's freedom.
John Ehrlichman. He said in 1994, "We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black. But by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did."
That's a real quote.
Yeah, that's a real quote. Nixon started the war on drugs to bully his political enemies and minorities. His own aide admitted it.
I can't believe I've been teaching this to children. At least it's better now, right?
You wish. Despite laws being loosened in a few states, mandatory minimums are still in effect all across the country, and marijuana still accounts for nearly half of all drug arrests. And despite the fact that white and black people smoke at basically the same rate, black people are
I don't care that we've been murdering you for years, and I don't care if there's been no change in the last 2 decades, and I don't care if your peaceful options weren't listened to. If you damage even 1 square inch of property, you lose all moral authority. Ah, shucks, my football team lost. Well, guess me and the boys are gonna go burn down Quiznos for fun.
If you are hungry and protesting today, we are slinging dogs at Rain City Fit.
This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Don't catch you slipping now. Look what I'm whipping now. This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Don't catch you slipping now. Look what I'm whipping now. This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Look how I'm living now. Police be tripping now. Inside. This is America. Guns in my area. I got the strap.
The police are literally
I gotta carry him. Yeah, I'ma go into this. Yeah, this is Gorilla. Yeah, I'ma go get the bag.
We're okay. The line has been pushed back. I can't even see what's happening at this point. Walking on Capitol Hill, a car just drove into that crowd.
Y'all are so quick to say, it's not the dog, it's the owner. Yet when children act out in high school and middle school, you blame them for being terrible people and not talk about their family situation.
No peace! No justice! No peace! SMN 74 reporting live on Hollywood Boulevard. As you can see, this is a historic moment in the United States. We have protesters in front of what seems to be the National Guard or military. You see the vehicles. This is happening on American soil. Ladies and gentlemen, we are demanding justice immediately. SMN 74, signing out. No justice!
TikTok, our president, Donald Trump, has just announced that he's going to go against governor's orders if they choose not to use the National Guard and enforce the army, going against the balance of power in our constitutional right to assembly. This is illegal. And I watched the live for the DC protest, and they were peaceful. And then they started shooting tear gas, and they started shooting rubber pellets. Minutes before Donald Trump spoke. Take that in. Comment for the algorithm. Do your thing, because I'm not trying to get shadow banned. I need people to hear this. This is illegal.
If you support Black Lives Matter, then don't scroll. And if you're not a supporter, then bye. Alright, this is for you, especially if you belong in the LGBTQ+ community. Please stand up and speak up for transgender women, especially transgender women of color. And this is why. Transgender women of color deal with the intersection of racism, sexism, and transphobia. And as a result, they face higher rates of assaults, anti-transgender violence, and murdering. In fact, the murdering of transgender women of color has been very serious in the US to the point that it has been declared an epidemic. As we protest against injustices and systemic racism towards Black people, people of color, it is also important to stand against the injustices that transgender women of color have to deal with on a regular basis. To everyone supporting Black Lives Matter, please support and speak up for transgender women as well.
I'm going to need everyone to comment on this, copy link, and share this to everyone because the Louisville Police Department is trying to cover up for their own yet again. These 3 murderers are getting off easy due to a false incident report. The Louisville Police Department recently released an incident report in regards to Breonna Taylor's murder. And there are numerous things that are suspicious about this incident report, most notably saying that there was no harm done to Taylor. And need I remind you, they fired 22 shots into her apartment, 8 of which hit Taylor and killed her. They also redacted her address and her apartment number, which is probably due to the fact that they already had the person they were looking for when they went to Taylor's apartment in police custody. Also under the category of forced entry, they checked no, despite the fact that these 3 police officers forced themselves into Breonna Taylor's apartment. They were not in uniform and they did not announce themselves. They also tried to charge Breonna Taylor's boyfriend for shooting back at these officers because he assumed that someone was breaking into their apartment. So these 3 men can rot.
So the Earn It Act could eliminate encryption, privacy, and freedom of speech online. This is the Earn It Act, packaged oh so deliberately like this. They're trying to get this passed by using children being exploited. That is so despicable, And this document contains no solutions to this very real problem. So not only do they not actually care, they're just mentioning it so that you won't read it, so let's read it. First, it explains the creation of this commission, headed by the Attorney General or his representative. In this case, that's Attorney General Barr, who said in the past that he wants to ban encryption entirely and grant law enforcement legal access to any digital message. The rest of the commission will essentially be people who agree with him. This is doubly sneaky because by making a committee, they don't actually have to list the restrictions that they want to make in case you would disagree. This way sponsors can say things like this. Well, of course it doesn't, Richard, because you needed to be able to say that. And these so-called guidelines will be guidelines in the same way that like a law is a guideline. You know, where you get fined and imprisoned if you don't comply. I think this pretty much sums it up. Thank you to the EFF. Call your reps, sign petitions, and blow this up.
So someone asked how the FBI infiltrated the Black Panthers. So let's go back to 1956 before the Black Panther Party was founded. To fight the communists of the 50s, the FBI created a group called COINTELPRO. That's short for Counterintelligence Program, and it was started to watch communists in the 50s but ended up continuing to the 1970s where they watched the KKK, the Socialist Workers Party, the Black Panther Party, and a group called RAM. And I'm gonna make a separate video about RAM because RAM is the one they don't want you to know about. By the late 1960s, the BPP had 70 chapters and thousands of members nationwide. In 1968, he said the FBI had to prevent the Black Messiah. Yeah. So the FBI teamed up with the local police departments and they were doing anything to weaken their numbers, frame them for crimes they didn't commit, perform raids, even assassinations. And then the 70s happened and things got worse.
As you can see, LAPD is very peaceful, shooting at civilians. Last night, they pushed me and several others into a building that they set fire to. The building was not on fire until LAPD set the building to fire. The only way out was a barricaded way that the police stood there and shot you if you tried to leave. We suffocated on fumes. We finally broke open the back door and was able to escape. I was pushed into glass and laid on the ground, suffocating from the smoke. I was arrested and taken to the ER. I have broken ribs. I was shot in the head and the legs. I have third-degree burns, severe bruising, and I'm lucky to have escaped with my life. And I will be back to protest today at Santa Monica. Please stay safe.
Riddle of the day. A prosecutor has found an incriminating DNA match, and he claims that the odds of finding a match against an innocent man are extremely low. Therefore, the odds of this man being innocent are also as low. But this is a fallacious argument. Can you spot the problem? Pause here and think about it. Let me give you another example. What are the chances that I own a horse if I tell you that I own a four-legged animal? Probably pretty low since there's so many four-legged animals to choose from. But on the other hand, what are the chances that I own a four-legged animal if I tell you that I own a horse? Almost 100%. When you're given a conditional probability, what are the odds of A given B, you can't freely switch A and B. Those of you who've studied Bayes' theorem will know why. But this is exactly what the prosecutor is doing by claiming that the odds of finding a match given an innocent man is as low as being innocent given that there's a match. This is called the prosecutor's fallacy, and it does occur in real life. And in part 2, I'll tell you guys about the most tragic miscarriage of justice that happened when it did.
Okay, so I see a lot of people being like, get his charge updated to first degree. Don't. Dude, that's a terrible idea. Here's why. The original charge for Derek Chauvin, the police officer who killed George Floyd, was third degree murder, which is murder without intent, but with disregard for human life. And it got upgraded to second degree, which is murder with intent. However, first degree is premeditated murder, which means they would have to prove that he planned to kill George Floyd, which is much harder to prove in court, and so it's more likely that he would not be convicted for that. Saying that he meant to kill him in that moment is much easier to prove than saying that he planned to kill him. There's a difference, so please don't, that's the best we're gonna get. It is the best we are going to get in this situation. So please stop telling them to upgrade it to first. I would like him to rot in prison. I want his bones to crumble inside a jail cell, so please stop telling them to do that. If you see it, just don't do it.
Stop scrolling. This is really important, and I need you to share this with as many people as possible. We just found out within the last few hours that people in Columbus, Ohio were purposely being poisoned with antifreeze. Someone donated contaminated water to the protesters. This is the Central Ohio Street Medic Collective. These were people at the protests. So I'll let you pause so you can read the post. Luckily, it looks like they caught it early. Only one person had to actually be hospitalized for this, but a bunch of people got sick. Someone was literally out here trying to kill protesters simply because they were protesting the unjust death of Black people in America. This is why we say Black Lives Matter. And while the president still continues to stoke this violence against these protesters, this is the outcome. This right here.
Chad, I'm not really for sure what's about to happen. They're about to throw tear gas though, so we might want to shut the windows in a minute.
How school taught you the Martin Luther King story went. Tra-la-la, we're being racist. Hey guys, please stop being racist. Oh, well golly gee, you asked so nicely, I guess we'll stop being racist. Thank you. I will now die in some unspecific way that we won't dwell on. Aw, it's so sad you died. Well, at least we fixed racism. Yay! How it actually went. We're being super racist, as we have from the very beginning of our foundation. I would like to peacefully request that you stop doing that. Nah, we're pretty good with the racist systems that we have now. I'm going to stage a couple of peaceful protests. Wow, aren't you the little instigator? Anyway, we're going to stick some dogs and fire hoses on you. That's okay, I'm still going to try and be peaceful. Now we're going to throw you in jail and beat up your friends. Well, that's problematic, but I'm just going to try. Now we're going to call you a communist and spread a bunch of rumors and tell you to kill yourself. Like, officially, through our government agencies. You know, I'm starting to think the more militant side has a point. Bang! Oops, you're dead. And that's on Whitewashed History.
In Louisiana, a 12-year-old child with ADHD was at lunch and he warned his friends not to take all the potatoes or he would get them. He was charged with making terroristic threats and spent 2 weeks incarcerated awaiting trial. In Palm Beach, Florida, a 14-year-old disabled student was reported to the principal's office for allegedly stealing $2 from another student. The child was charged with strong-armed robbery and spent 6 weeks in an adult jail. In Queens, New York, a 5-year-old child was arrested, handcuffed, and taken to a psychiatric hospital after having a tantrum and knocking papers off of a principal's desk. All of this is possible thanks to the zero-tolerance policy that became widespread in the United States in 1994 after the Columbine shooting and fears of violence in our schools escalated. Somehow we have turned legitimate concerns about violence in our schools into a way to target minority and disabled students. Learning does not occur in a place where children feel afraid. Learning does not occur in a police state. Get the police out of our schools.
Here's some updates on the ICE concentration camp situation. First of all, to the few people who are calling me white, anyways, HDQ Natural is an extremely strong and toxic chemical that can be used to remove COVID-19 from hard surfaces. It's only to be used on stuff like walls and floors, and it is so strong that it's heavily regulated by the government. Here is some of the directions on the label. It clearly says that it's against federal law to use on human beings. And if you look at the contact time, you should use it very, very, very sparingly. However, they're spraying it in the cages that they're keeping us in every 30 minutes. They are rounding us up in camps and poisoning us. Does that sound familiar? People are asking me for any petitions or donation links. I don't have any at the moment, and I'm also banned from commenting. There is a rally that I know of, but that's pretty much it. People were asking me what they can do. Just make sure it doesn't get buried in the news. Spread the
You could feel entitled to take away a life, but I can feel entitled to stand up for my rights. It's sad that you could feel entitled to kill him with your knee, but he can't feel entitled to just live his life and breathe. It's funny, you could feel entitled with power in your skin, but I can feel entitled with the skin that I am in. It's funny, you could feel entitled with the system that benefits you, but anytime we want some justice seems to be an issue. Funny, you can cause disruption and gather all for nothing, but we can't even march for change or gather for discussion about life and what is right, for change and what is wrong. Like I can't breathe or walk down the street. Don't shoot, it's just a phone.
Y'all want to get mad at people for looting, but you won't tell us where you get those artifacts for your museums. You want to get mad at us for rioting, but you literally made a professional football player lose his job for kneeling. Y'all want to tell us to not destroy public property, but keep telling me about the Boston Tea Party every year at school. So baby, why don't you come catch this fade, sport? Because I'm ultimately tired.
Hey witches, let's use white supremacy and police brutality to learn a little something about magic today. So you probably see these numbers and this acronym thrown around a lot here on TikTok and other social media. But have you ever considered that these are formulas for evoking an idea? In magic, that series of numbers assigning a number to each letter is something called gematria. It encodes an idea numerically. And although grammatically we would call this an acronym, in magic we call it a notaricon, which takes the first letter of each word in a prayer or phrase and makes a new word from it. Now the purpose of a notaricon or gematria magically is to encode an idea into symbolic language which then speaks to the subconscious mind. In this case, the encoded idea is that people cannot protect or serve the interests of justice if the laws that they are hired to uphold are unjust or racist. The point isn't to disparage or insult cops. Instead, it's to encode the idea that the system they exist in is corrupt, that it's bastardized. Now, a magical formula is useless if it doesn't inspire direct action. So think about the power of these formula and how you can use them.
Shout out to my mom serving beans and tortillas, and we got your beats throwing that's like Shakira. Fuck ice, bitch, we sending shots so tequila. Free all them kids, man, I can't forget my tia. Shout out to my mom serving beans and tortillas, and we got your beats throwing.
I feel like people don't realize that the fact that cops don't do their job properly isn't some kind of crazy conspiracy theory. It's literally a fact. It's the first thing that is taught to us during a criminology degree. Do not trust police statistics because police do not file reports properly. Police do not believe victims to the point where people won't even bother trying to report things to police. And police will skew their statistics in order to make themselves look better when they have to submit a crime report to criminal agencies. They'll skew them to make themselves look better because a lot of the time they will not even bother investigating reports. This isn't some crazy thing that we've just come up with. This has been taught for years now. It's a well-known fact that police are not doing a good job.
Some of y'all is about to be real mad at me. And if you are, you got some serious soul searching to do, hun. If you attended every single women's rights march in your city, and all your Instagram captions say, men are pigs, rights for women, down with the patriarchy, yet you don't support the Black Lives Matter movement, even though it also represents Black women who are equally affected by police brutality and racism, and you don't advocate for the Indigenous women who are going missing and being murdered left and right, and you don't advocate for the Latino women whose children are being stripped away from them just because they want to give them a better life. Bam, last time I checked, you weren't a feminist. If you know this tune, feel free to sing it along with me. You are nothing but a white feminist if you pretend that women of color don't exist. God, I love that song.
Shout out to my mom serving beans and tortillas. And we got your beats throwing ass like Shakira. For ice, bitch, we sending shots to tequila. Free all them kinsmen, I can't forget my tia. Shout out to my mom serving beans and tortillas. And we got your beats throwing.
Some of y'all is about to be real mad at me. And if you are, you got some serious soul searching to do, hun. If you attended every single women's rights march in your city, and all your Instagram captions say, men are pigs, rights for women, down with the patriarchy, yet you don't support the Black Lives Matter movement, even though it also represents Black women who are equally affected by police brutality and racism, and you don't advocate for the Indigenous women who are going missing and being murdered left and right, and you don't advocate for the Latino women whose children are being stripped away from them just because they want to give them a better life. Bam, last time I checked, you weren't a feminist. If you know this tune, feel free to sing it along with me. You are nothing but a white feminist if you pretend that women of color don't exist. God, I love that song.
Just a reminder that being an ally doesn't give you the right to speak for Black people. An ally uses their privilege to shed light on Black problems. They don't use the Black Lives Matter movement to give them leverage. And honestly, just saying that you're pro-Black isn't going to do it for me anymore. If you want to help, you need to avidly fight for the Black Lives Matter movement. Not only do you need to be pro-Black, but you need to be anti-racist.
I keep forgetting that the Constitution only applies to white people in this country. If a group of white people are screaming murder at a woman trying to abort her rapist child, then they're going to protect themselves with the First Amendment. If a white person shoots up a school, they're going to protect them with the Second Amendment. But if minorities and allies are calmly protesting in the streets about inequality, racial injustice, and murder, it's violently going to get shut down. White people in this country love to brag about their freedom, but no one is free. No one is free to love who they love, no one is free to have a skin color that isn't white, and no one is free to have their own religion. How disappointed your God must be in you knowing that you're blindly hating people because they don't share your morals, skin color, or religion. Love thy neighbor suddenly doesn't apply when your neighbor isn't from this country. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you suddenly doesn't apply when you're crushing the windpipe of a man who was doing nothing. United States of America. How ironic considering the only ones who are united are the ones fighting for happiness and the ones fighting for hatred. Grow the fuck up!
For any new activists who are going out in Minneapolis tonight and protesting, I thought I'd give you a few more tips. Number one, I guarantee they put undercover cops in your crowd tonight. Careful with what you say around people you don't know. Number two, call the ACLU right now and ask them to send legal observers. These are people who don't get involved in your protest. They come in blue vests, they film everything, and they document any police brutality. Number 3, Google ACLU Know Your Rights brochure so you know your rights before you go. Listen to police scanners so you know which way they're moving. And remember that a federal judge ruled that they can't say you have 15 seconds to disperse or you'll be arrested. A federal judge ruled that unconstitutional in Ferguson, Missouri. Good luck.
Hey, stop scrolling for a sec. For like 2 seconds, we both know you have time. And this message is for everybody, but especially if you live in Bakersville, California. This douchebag's name is Timothy Keith Moore. He's an open white supremacist, has the tats all over his body to show for it, all that stuff. Well, this past week, at the Bakersfield Black Lives Matter protest, old Timmy boy ran over and killed a black man named Robert Forbes, and he is yet to be arrested. Here's a quick list of some of his violent charges dating back to 2013, just in case some of you racists out there want to argue on his behalf. So I'm gonna put y'all to the test, because half of my videos regarding Black Lives Matter movements have not been getting the same type of reach that my goofy ass skits get on here. So to everybody on here, and especially the group of you who have been using the Black Power Fist as a trend, only posting about the matter for clout, yeah, you guys, let's see how far you can spread this message to bring justice to yet another one of our brothers who's lost his life to the hands of a white supremacist. It's summertime. I know 90% of y'all ain't working. Y'all on here scrolling all day, right? Well, if you want to have that Black Power Fist up in your profile picture, then do something with it. Help get this man to his new home, a jail cell. Thank you. Have a nice day.
About a third of all money for schools comes from property taxes. That means the more expensive a house is in a certain neighborhood, the more money is going to that school, the more resources they have, and the more competitive they are for quality teachers. As we learned earlier, we cannot separate socioeconomic status from race because of things like segregation and redlining. So that means it's more likely that a white student is going to get a better education than a student of color.
I keep forgetting that the Constitution only applies to white people in this country. If a group of white people are screaming murder at a woman trying to abort her rapist child, then they're going to protect themselves with the First Amendment. If a white person shoots up a school, they're going to protect them with the Second Amendment. But if minorities and allies are calmly protesting in the streets about inequality, racial injustice, and murder, it's violently going to get shut down. White people in this country love to brag about their freedom, but no one is free. No one is free to love who they love, no one is free to have a skin color that isn't white, and no one is free to have their own religion. How disappointed your God must be in you knowing that you're blindly hating people because they don't share your morals, skin color, or religion. Love thy neighbor suddenly doesn't apply when your neighbor isn't from this country. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you suddenly doesn't apply when you're crushing the windpipe of a man who was doing nothing. United States of America. How ironic considering the only ones who are united are the ones fighting for happiness and the ones fighting for hatred. Grow the fuck up!
Go to the river where the water runs. Wash him deep where the tides are turning. And if you fall, hold my hand. Ooh, baby, it's a long way down to the bottom of the river. Hold my hand. Ooh, baby, it's a long way down, a long way down. Hold my hand. Ooh, baby, it's a
About a third of all money for schools comes from property taxes. That means the more expensive a house is in a certain neighborhood, the more money is going to that school, the more resources they have, and the more competitive they are for quality teachers. As we learned earlier, we cannot separate socioeconomic status from race because of things like segregation and redlining. So that means it's more likely that a white student is going to get a better education than a student of color.
I don't have a following to get this message out, but I need you to help me and don't let this get shadow banned. I tried to be cute about it before, but it's not getting far enough. I work in a chemistry lab where we learn how to rinse chemicals out of your eye, and I have worked in an emergency room, and you need to watch this. This page has so much more information than I can give you in 60 seconds. It talks about the liquid antacid and water treatment on the MedicWiki, but basically it says that you shouldn't be using this in the eyes because it can still damage your eyes and cause allergic reactions, but this is perfect for oral consumption. Instead, eye wash is around the same price as the liquid antacid, and it comes all ready to go. There's a cup. You fill the cup, you put the cup on the eye, and then you tilt back and you blink, and it will flush out your eye. Same thing goes for like contact solution. It's just a saline solution that you can put on your eyes. Every chemical lab will tell you that if you don't have access to eye rinse, use pure water and nothing else. No milk, no baby soap and water. Nothing else should go in your eye. It is so sensitive. Those techniques are great for skin and oral consumption, but they should not be used in your eyes. Please stay safe out there.